Hello, welcome to the channel. In this video, we will learn how to perform clash detection in Revit. Clash detection helps us identify conflict between different elements before construction starts. This is very important in BIM workflow. So today we'll start with a new model, and today what we will do is we'll check a clash between some MEP elements and some architecture walls. So what we'll do is we'll choose a mechanical template today. While this is opening, a clash occurs when two elements occupy the same space. So let us draw something. So what we can do is like we are at level 00. We'll pick some architecture walls. So let us draw a simple layout. Let us draw some rooms. Okay, so these walls, if we go and change this view to coordination, just so that it allows us to select the walls. And if we say these walls are running from level 0 to level 1, so for the purpose of doing this exercise, what we are doing is we are not drawing any of the doors and other elements. So we are just doing the walls. And now within the same model, what we are doing is we are drawing the services. So we'll go to the system panel and we'll pick duct. So we have picked this duct, and from its elevation, it will be around 2750 up. So it's at elevation of this value. So what we are drawing is, let's say we have some mechanical services running from this point, and let's suppose you have a mechanical equipment placed here and its duct is going into your each room. So it's going there, and then it's connecting in this one, and it's connecting to this room. It's picking from here going into this room. Okay, and then let us take another example. We take a pipe that few of your rooms might be these two toilets and bath need some water thing. So we have placed a water pipe and we'll just drop its level to say 50. So let's go to 3D, and you see that your ducts are running at a high level and your pipe is at some lower level. And let's make it fine so that we see that pipe. Okay, so now the thing is, in order to avoid these clashes, you must be creating some sort of voids here. And to identify these clashes before sight, what you can do within Revit, instead of going into each place one by one, what you can do is you can go to collaborate and you go to interference check and you run your interference check. So here what we have in our model is we have walls, we have pipes, we have ducts, and we have duct fittings. So these bends at 90 and these connectors are considered as duct fittings. So what we want to check is whether any of our walls are clashing with any of these MEP services. So this is selection. You can say this is selection A and this is selection B. So from A versus B, if we want to check, so we can run this report and we say, okay, Then Revit provides you a report which tells that your walls are actually clashing with these elements. And if you'll click on one, it highlights your wall as well as the clashing duct. Similarly, in other instance, it tells you that this wall is clashing with this duct. So by going on each, you can find out where these are clashing. So this is very helpful in identifying the early clashes. So now what we'll do is we will do this trial in different models. So this is currently within the model. So what happens if you have an architecture model and you have a structural model and you have a mechanical model? So we have generated a separate architecture, structure, and MEP model. So we are currently within our structure model, and what we have done is we have linked in the architecture model and MEP model. So if we turn them on, so walls we have just changed color to red. Now, in order to identify the clashes, you can either do between structure and architecture, or between structure and MEP, or between MEP and architecture. But at one time within Revit, you can do between two type of categories. So we go to interference check and we run interference check. And here, instead of running check within current project, what we will say is we are in current project, which is structural category, and we wants to check if any of the MEP model services are clashing with any of our structural element. So in our structural element, we have framings, we have column, and we have flow. And we wants to know if any of the MEP services are clashing with our structural elements. So we have selected all of our structural element categories, and now we are picking all the MEP categories. And if we hit OK, it says it has not found any of the interference. So that means none of our structural elements are clashing with the MEP elements. So now we will choose between the other discipline. We'll go to interference check, and from here we will see if our structural model elements are clashing with any of the architecture elements. So in architecture we have just made walls, so we'll check with walls. And when we say this, it says that here your wall is clashing with the column. Here you can see this wall is running all through and clashing with this column. Similarly, here is also the same clash. The wall is clashing with, so here you can see this column clashing with this wall, this column clashing with the same wall, and here one of these walls are clashing with this beam. So now you have these information. So what you can do is you can go into the architecture model and you can report to the architecture person that please could you rectify these clashes. In order to rectify these clashes, if we do this trial over here, what we can do is like we can go into the architecture model. So we'll go into the architecture model. So what we'll do is like we have linked in the structural model and we know where the clashes is. So what we can do is like we can just rectify these clashes. And once we have corrected this, we can save this file. And now we will go back into our structural model. So we will reload the architecture model, and we'll go back to our interference. So we can say that the architect has made the changes. And if we go to our last report, earlier what issue we had was like our column was clashing with three walls and one of our framing was clashing with one of the walls. So what we can do is this report was checked on some this notice time, and if we say refresh, so now you see there is no clashes because all of those clashes were resolved. So if you want to recheck, you go to this, you pick that this is my structure model, these are the categories, and from the architecture model, if we check with walls, so it says it don't have any of the clashes. So I hope you have now understand that how we can check the clashes and how we can rectify them. So now what we will do is we will go into the architecture model and we'll check the clashes against the MEP model. So we are within the architecture model, and now we want to know if our architecture walls are clashing with the MEP services. So the same pattern we'll follow. We'll go to collaborate, we'll go to check the interference, and in the architecture model, we'll pick the walls. And from the MEP model, we'll pick all the services. And you see there are numerous clashes. So what you can do is, in order to avoid these clashes, you can create some of the openings here. So for just one example, what we can do is, first of all, what you can do is you can go to the report and you can export the report. So you can say this is clash between architecture model versus MEP model. And this report you can use, you can share this report with the team telling that these are your walls architecture elements and these are their element IDs and these are clashing with MEP model and these are the MEP elements ID. So what they can do is they can either the MEP guys can work on the rectification or the architecture can do the rectification. For example, there are 7 clashes. What we will do is we'll try to rectify one of the classes. So for this wall, what we can do is like we can create a void. So we'll go to the profile and we'll just simply draw a rectangle. So now you can see this is a big rectangle just to avoid this clash. And what we'll do is we'll go to interference check, we'll go to the last report, and you can see there are 7 instances. And if we refresh this one, it has reduced one of the instances. So you can export this report and you can say this is the report, but it's say version 2. So here you can see both the reports. This was the earlier report where we had 7 instances and now we have 6 instances. Revit class detection is useful for basic coordination. For advanced class detection, you can use software like Navisworks, which is commonly used. So I have tried you to give a real world knowledge, not just the tool knowledge. This is how you can perform clash detection in Revit. If this video helped you, like the video and subscribe to the channel.